Mothers, be good to your daughters because they grow up to be mothers. You know, that just leads into my talk perfectly because it illustrates the idea that we are all just actually mirrors to each other. My talk title is Mirror, Mirror. And the relationships that we have when we're young tend to impact us the rest of our lives, don't they? Yeah, I think they do. So how many of you have heard this spiritual wisdom that all relationships are a mirror? Pretty common, right? Well, I don't know about you, but when I first heard this, it kind of just baffled me. Like, I don't get it. But I've chewed on this concept for years, and I think I'm ready to share a couple of pieces of truth that I've kind of gleaned for myself and discovered about relationships being mirrors. So first I just want to talk a little bit about a mirror, the qualities of a mirror. A mirror is a surface that reflects back to the observer itself. And many different things can serve as a mirror, right? You know, I found that if I can't find an actual mirror, just a smooth piece of glass or a window will do, or you know, a body of water would do. And I'm always amused when people use their cell phones on selfie mode as a mirror, like checking out their teeth or whatever they'll do. You know, sometimes you just see what you look like, right? And other people can be pretty effective mirrors. A sweetheart of mine many years ago, and I used to do what's called TCBCs. You know what a TCBC is? It's a teefy check and a boogie check. So, you know, you have to make sure you don't have a piece of spinach in your mouth or whatever, right? Very helpful, and actually I encourage all of you to be a mirror for me. Please lovingly say, you know, something's going on here. But anyway, please help me. So we do know that we can serve as mirrors for each other, but do you know that it is possible that we always serve as mirrors for each other? So I want to talk about this concept in 3 different ways. The first thing I want to talk about is what I call facets, and the second one is energy deposits, and the third way I want to talk about is seeing who we are in others. So let's first talk about this idea of facets. So I like to describe us all as gems with different cut sides, different facets of ourselves. And we each have many facets, and we show different facets to different people. For example, you show me a different side of yourself than you show other people in your life, like your boss or your spouse or your kid or whatever. You're going to show me a different side of yourself. And every person who knows you actually gets to see a slightly different version of you. And you may describe the very same incident in your life to different people, but you're going to talk about it very differently depending on who you're talking to, who the audience is. So for example, one morning you're driving to work, let's just say, and you get a speeding ticket, all right? So very simple, factual situation. However, the story of this incident is going to vary widely based on who you're talking to. So for example, if you're going to call your spouse and tell them about the ticket, you know, you might show her your, you know, apologetic slide, like, hey honey, oh, I hate to tell you this, but yeah, I got a speeding ticket on the way to work and it's going to be about $100 and I'm so sorry. Or you could also show her like a victim facet, like, hey, thanks a lot for arguing with me this morning and taking up too much time. I had to drive fast and I got a ticket and it's on your fault. That argument cost us $100, sweetheart. You know, that kind of thing, right? So in both examples, you're showing your spouse a different facet to yourself. And guess what? That spouse is going to reflect back to you whoever you are on the phone, right? And depending on what facet she wants to show to you, might be a little dodgy. Could be an interesting conversation. But now let's take a different person. Let's say it's a buddy at work that you're going to talk about it with. And you choose a completely different facet to display, right? You are not going to bleep and believe what happened to me, this jerk of a police officer, and goes on, right? That's very, very different facet that you're going to show to them. Or let's take your child. This happened to me one time. My child was in the car. And you take the teacher approach. Like, honey, this is what happens when you're driving too fast. You need to get your ID ready and be respectful to the officer and all of that. So you take a completely different facet of yourself, and they're going to reflect back to you who you are. So each person that you encountered about the very same incident is going to reflect back to you a different way of being. You chose who you wanted to be, and they respond to your choice. That's how it works. Now think about the idea of relating to the same character in your life, the same person in your life for years and years and years. Over time, we become fixed in the facet that we show to a certain person. Your script kind of gets solidified into a role, and you become pretty predictable as you relate to the different people in your life. And the bad news is that the only way you can change a relationship is to change yourself, to change the facet of yourself that you show to that person. The good news is that you have the power to change relationships in your life by changing the facet you show of yourself to the other person. You can only change yourself, but you do have great power in changing relationships because they are indeed mirrors. See, once I've shown a certain facet of myself to you enough times, you begin to expect me to show up as that version. And when I show up in an unexpected way, it can throw off the pattern of a relationship and change the dance completely. Just changing yourself. Because when I turn a new side to you, you will have to adjust how you show up with me too. Because if I'm gonna be different and you're gonna try to hold the same side towards me, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. When I turn, you will turn too, because you're a mirror. The mirror must reflect who you show up to be. And you can change any relationship by changing who you show up to be. That's the idea of facets as a mirror. The second idea I want to explore a little bit is this idea that you are always simply in relationship with yourself. Even though you seem to be relating to another, you're actually relating to yourself. Let me see if I can explain it. So this week in Colorado, I was around a whole lot of ministers. And actually I met a whole bunch of them around the same time, right? Because I was coming out of ministerial school, I was meeting my colleagues. And I want to talk about two different ministers that I met on the exact same day, actually. And I've changed the names to protect the guilty or innocent or whatever. So the first person I will call Sarah, and the minute I met her, I loved her. I had a thought about Sarah. I had a first thought about her. And that first thought is what begins any relationship. And sometimes for me, the first impression of a person is the one that stays, right? It's like I meet the person, I have a first thought, and that's the thought that lives out the relationship. And sometimes the first impression gives way, after you learn a little bit more, like, what was I thinking? I was crazy. She's wonderful. But for Sarah, I really loved her instantly. And I started with a thought, and I continue to have thoughts about her. And those are my energy drops. Those thoughts are my energy that I'm depositing on Sarah. In the field of possibility that I call Sarah, I drop love and positive expectation and kindness and generosity and forgiveness and all of that. I just instantly adored her, so I thought that she was funny and wise and enjoyable and smart and all those things. And since those are the kinds of thoughts that I decided to think about her, I have made choices toward her about who she is or about who I think she is. And every time I see her, I am actually coming into contact with the energy that I deposited in her field, right? I'm depositing energy and I'm visiting that energy. So I can tell you that when I saw Sarah this week, I was so happy to see her. I scooped her right up and just loved on her. I was so happy to see Sarah. And, if I find out that she's going to thing, then I want to go to that thing too, right? But I want to interact with the positive energy that I've left in her. I want to visit myself in her, right? And we all have Sarahs in our lives and we love them, right? But I have to admit that I met another colleague on the very same day, and I'll call her Emily. And for whatever reason, I instantly did not connect with her. I didn't. It's kind of like a negative first impression, like immediately, I'm like, this person's weird or whatever. And it could have been caused by a zillion different things, who knows, but nonetheless, I felt this instant friction with Emily. I made an instant decision. This is not my peep, this is not my person, right? And I made tiny little similar energy drops of like repellent energy actually in her. And I think of her as condescending and rude and judgmental and whatever. And she's a minister too. What am I thinking? But at any rate, every time I see her, I'm coming into contact with the energy that I deposited in her, and I don't enjoy being around her. I don't enjoy being around her at all. I avoid her. I have warned other people to avoid her. Isn't that crazy? Don't go interact with her because it's my energy over there and you don't want that. You don't want to be that. Please tell me you can relate to having an Emily in your life. It's not just me. Thank you very much. So most people actually are more complicated than my example of Sarah and Emily. Most people you interact with significantly are getting a mixture of energy deposits from you. You know, there are love deposits that you make, but there are also fear deposits that you make. I like him, but I don't trust him. Well, he's kind of cool, but I don't know. Or, you know, it's more mixed like that. I can't quite figure this person out. And so there are drops of acceptance, and then there are drops of judgment. Love and fear, fear and love. And you are depositing a mixture of energy drops all over these people. So here's the deal. Every time you come into the presence of another person, you're visiting your own energy in that person that they have absorbed. You're going up to the person and looking into the mirror of the thoughts that you've had about them, the beliefs and feelings that you have projected onto them. That's what you're going up to interact with. So think about the people that you dread seeing. You know, they're the people you've been having hard thoughts about, or gossiping about, or secretly despising. You know, we don't want to look into those mirrors. We don't want to look into the mirrors of our own judgments and fears and loathing. Those are not fun mirrors to look into. But think about the people you can't wait to see. Think about that. They're the people that you continue to love from a distance. Every time you think of them, you're loving them, you're excited about them, you're sending them your thoughts and good stuff. And so you want to see them because you get to be around your energy that they're bringing back to you. It's a lovely mirror to gaze into. So healing a relationship is about cleaning up the energy you have left in a person and changing your deposits to energy drops of love instead of energy drops of fear. Everyone is a mirror that shows you that you left in them. The third concept I want to talk about is the reality that a mirror can only reflect who and what you are. In other words, you can't blame or credit the mirror for what you see. You have to realize that it's impossible for the mirror to do anything other than reflect. We must own what we see in the mirror of our relationships. Someone once said, if you want the reflection in the mirror to change, you don't put makeup on the mirror itself. The truth is that all of us are whole and complete microcosms, micro-representations of the macro. So each of us have the full spectrum of possibilities within ourselves. Everything that is out there is in here. There is not a person alive who has within them anything that is not within you too. So let's unpack that truth. Take a breath. That's a big thing. Each of us are human, and each of us are divine. Right? Talk about that a lot. Our path to spirituality is about waking up our divine selves and kind of letting our human selves not drive the bus so much. Right? So all the qualities of the human spectrum, all those possibilities lie dormant within us. And all of the qualities of the divine spectrum also dwell within us, dormantly waiting for us to express them. This means that within each of us is the same possibility of light and darkness, truth and deception, generosity and greed, creation and destruction. Within each of us lies all the choices of behaviors and traits. And we each have the capacity to love magnanimously, but we also have the capacity to hate ferociously. We have the possibility of affirming life, but also destroying life. And the big reality is that each of us have the power of choice as to how we show up, and how we show up becomes reflected in the people around us. So I believe that the purpose in this lifetime is to hone our craft of being human. We're here with billions of other people serving as our mirrors so that we can better learn how to be human and spiritual. It's our purpose to spend this life learning to express out and to form our highest self, our godness. That's what we're here for. And every person is on the path of an awakening to their own divineness. That's what everyone's doing. And some people on the planet don't even know that they have a spiritual identity at all. We're here in this room because we're on that path of waking up. But we've got to be patient with all the people in the world that we interact with that don't even know that there is a spiritual path to walk. Every person is waking up to the reality that life is about choosing what you think, what you believe, how you respond, how you react, what action you take, what emotion you feel. Many people don't even know they have a choice that can be made. They're simply in reactive mode. So when we watch another human being, and trust me, there's a lot of examples out there to watch. So when we watch other human beings displaying a behavior or a quality that we abhor, we've got to remember that they are only reflecting back to us an inner possibility that we may not be displaying, but we have within us. We have to remember that. Perhaps we've healed that aspect in our lives and we're impatient for other people to heal it. Or perhaps we're terrified that that aspect might creep out and become known to other people. We're afraid it's going to just burst out of us too, right? Or perhaps we're watching another show us a side of ourselves that we refuse to look at in our own behavior. That's a possibility as well. Or we may become aware of someone who seems to have an attribute or a skill that we don't think we have. We don't have that. We seem to be cheated out of receiving a certain amount of a quality that others are blessed with and we somehow aren't. But that cannot be spiritually true in the aspect of wholeness and oneness. That cannot be true. We must remember as we gaze into the mirror of that special person that we have the same aspects within us too. They may not be developed yet. They may not have been discovered by you, but there is nothing in another person that you don't have in you. It has to be in there somewhere. We may not know how to use that tool or that attribute, and we may refuse to believe that we have it, or we could be curious about how we could develop that part of ourselves as we grow and learn. There's an old saying, if you spot it, you got it. If you spot it, you got it. There's nothing you can recognize in another that you don't have within you. So everyone around you is a mirror reflecting back to you all the aspects of yourself. And you get to decide whether you believe it or not. Our call is to surround ourselves with mirrors or people that feel true and affirming. You read that in your reading. There's a beautiful quality about being in the presence of a person that reflects back to you your truest self. So many years ago, I was living in a house that did not have a full-length mirror. I had mirrors in my bathroom and mirrors on my dresser, but you gotta look at your whole outfit, don't you, right? So I didn't have a mirror, so I had to go out to Home Depot or Target or somewhere, and I got a new mirror and I screwed it onto the back of a door so that I could see the whole thing. And over time what I discovered was that this particular mirror was warped in just a way that it made me look skinnier. Just a little bit, it stretched me a little bit. I loved that mirror. That mirror was great. I moved it from house to house to house. So it was just such a great mirror. I don't have that mirror anymore, but I wish I did actually. It was a mirror that I could look into and feel just a little bit more confident in myself each day. And so I think it's wise for us to surround ourselves with mirrors who reflect back to us our beautiful selves, affirming us in some way. And there's a fine balance though, because we can't refuse to look at the qualities we still have to work on in our lives. And I believe you have the wisdom to know the difference between doing the work to improve yourself and thus attracting a more loving reflection, and avoiding the truth of who you really are and denying yourself the wisdom available in an unflattering reflection, because those show you your lesser developed qualities. So being in significant relationships can both affirm you and challenge you, right? They can challenge you to grow, and we can be intentional about surrounding ourselves with people who help us grow. because we are constantly attracting to us the people who play into our story and give us choices about whether we will choose to once again be in pain or whether we will rise to healing and learning and growing. The right relationships can show us the things that we try to hide from others, and even things we try to hide from ourselves. So I'm sure you've heard the concept that people come into your life in relationships to serve for a reason. Some serve for a season and some serve for a lifetime. You're constantly attracting to yourself people to serve as your mirror for only one interaction. Sort of like the police officer in our opening example of the ticket. That's someone who's going to show you a reflection of yourself just one time. Or maybe it's the person who delivers your flowers on your birthday, or a clerk at a store or whatever. You're looking into the mirror of yourself just once. Maybe it's that ticket agent that has to deal with you when your flight gets canceled, and you get to look at yourself in that mirror. You get to use them to take a glance at yourself in different situations. And other relationships serve for a season. They're here for a while. You get to see yourself in them for a longer period of time. These are your teachers maybe for just one class, or a friend that stays in your life for a while but then moves away, or a person you date for a while but then you move on, or a neighbor in this chapter of your life but you never see them again. And these people allow you to kind of more fully develop an aspect of yourself as you gaze into their mirrors and that reflection, and you move through different scenarios with them. So pay attention to those people who consistently show you something that you love about yourself or judge about yourself for a longer period of time, and use that information in the reflection to heal and to grow. And then there are those lifetime relationships that serve you for a whole long time. And in these types of reflective relationships, you gaze into their mirror over and over and over again throughout your existence. Parents are usually in this category. Children are usually in it. Spouses, lifelong friends, cousins. Those are people that are with you for almost your entire journey. And these types of relationships continue even after death, even after divorce, even after moving away, even after choices that separate you. You are still in relationship with these lifetime people. And these relationships continue to reflect to you yourself, regardless of your ability to look directly into the mirror with your physical eyes. They're still reflecting back to you. So lifetime mirrors tend to serve you as you look at your old stories and your major life themes. My prayer is that here in community, we can be willing to play the role of mirror to each other consciously. Here in this room, in these friendships, in these relationships and connections, we can find a willingness to look into the mirror of our unhealed and undeveloped aspects of ourselves and see them in the eyes of another's love. Because the most powerful mirrors are the mirrors that reflect back with a loving consciousness. Our greatest healing comes when we master the art of mirror gazing, and from the reflections we see, gleaning opportunities to change the things we wish to change and to accept ourselves in the process. So let me close with a quote from Ernest Holmes. The mirror is simply something that reflects. You cannot scratch the reflection out of the mirror, but you can change the image in front of it. And you are the image maker. So let us create new images that will reflect new patterns. And we must be definite in our conviction and deliberate in our aim if we expect happy results. For theories are no good unless they are applied. Ernest Holmes. And so let's read our affirmation for the day together here on the screen. I am ready and willing to see myself as the divine and grow through all my relationships. Every relationship is a mirror. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you very much.